is Layla Zanti.
And I'm Marcus Rosati.
And this is Passport Necessary, a podcast that is dedicated to being a TCK now that we're adults and what it was like for us as kids. And today we are going to be talking about more food, but specifically we're going to be talking about food and cooking habits. So I know for me, I have a couple of cooking utensils that are, I wouldn't say like not every American has it, although a lot of Americans do have more like varied cooking traditions. I do think that like I have a couple items and definitely dishes that are not part of the quote unquote normal repertoire.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the same for me, especially with cooking utensils. Like there are some I always miss.
I'm always on the search for like a really good knife.
Oh god, yeah, knives. That's one of the things. It's actually quite difficult to find a good knife.
But one really good knife can seriously really change all your food.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like having a good knife sharpener as well.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's one of the things in Japan they're famous for, is making really good knives. I'm not sure why they do that. They've got a real sort of thing about making good knives, but it does seem quite important. In the UK, it doesn't seem like quite as much of a thing. Like you do have some fancy knives, like the Sabatier style knives and that sort of thing, and knife sets. But you don't see like huge, like in Japan you would see shops with just dedicated areas to like really just all these different knives, like and they were pretty well on display, and you'd have like meat cleavers and all sorts, as far as I remember.
I think
Like, serious amounts of stuff.
I think it's because in Japan they're working with parts of meat, whether it be chicken or beef or fish, that I think most Americans don't want to touch or don't want to deal with. I think that they're more willing to butcher at home. Although I know that when we were in Japan, there was like you could go to the store and they'll butcher the meat for you and it'll be clean as anything. But I think it's far more normal in Japan for you to like break down a bird or break down a fish at home than it would be necessarily like here in the States. And it takes practice.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because I remember like having to do things like preparing squid once. That's an interesting one to prepare, because that's completely different from most of the things you would normally do. And if you haven't got a good knife for that, it would be a nightmare, because you're not going to get through the skin, you're not going to get through the flesh, you're not going to get through anything very much.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt to prepare squid. I did it once and it was, the whole time I was like, this is kind of fun, but it's also so annoying.
Yeah. Because you've got like the weird bone that goes through it, you've got the beak, you've got the head, you've got all sorts. It's different from, well, yeah, they are anatomically different from fish, because the fish you could go, that's the head, that's the tail, we know what's in the middle. Whereas with the squid, it's a bit difficult because most of it's at one end. And then at the other end, you've got a few other things that you might be interested in, like the tentacles and stuff.
Oh, those are so good. I love the squid tentacles. They're the best. Yeah. I love that. I love squid. It's it's definitely a type of seafood that I don't think gets prepared well enough, often enough. But when it is prepared right, it is incredible and so worth the price of it.
Yeah. I guess it's just funny because it's like one of those things that people wouldn't normally think of to eat, I suppose. I mean, like you have calamari and stuff, but you never see whole squid on sale.
Not very often. I think you really do have to go to like oh my gosh, I can only think of the French word, a poissonnier. What is that in English?
Like a fishmonger or something
Thank
like that.
you.
Yeah.
Because panicking, I was like, fish person. What are they called?
Yeah.
I definitely think that certain fish, especially like certain cuttlefish, they're not, you won't find them very easily, or you will find them already prepared for you and they're usually in the frozen section. That's what I think would be more likely. Like I've seen frozen clams. Actually today I went shopping and I've never seen it at the store ever before. And I was so excited. I immediately messaged my partner. I was like, you have no idea. I just saw this. They had frozen crawfish from Louisiana, which made me so excited. I was legitimately thrilled. I love crawfish. It's so good.
I can't remember the last time I had one.
They're amazing. It's like a perfect mix between shrimp and lobster.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the delicate flavor of lobster. It's more like a shrimp in flavor, where it's a lot more like
Mm.
fishy and
Yeah.
kind of briny, but
Hmm.
it has the claws, and you can like break the
Yeah.
claws and open them. Oh,
Yeah.
I love crawfish so much. I haven't had it in so long. I was incredibly tempted to buy it, but then I would just be making it for myself because my partner does not eat seafood. I was
Yeah.
like, that would be a lot of crawfish for me to eat.
Yeah. But you never know.
That's
Something
true.
to do.
That is true. Maybe I just need to go make myself some crawfish.
Yeah. Do it. Just do it.
I know that I use chopsticks fairly often when I'm cooking. Do you find
Mm.
yourself using them?
It's one of those things that I wish I had, but I don't have it. I don't even have any of my own at the moment. Mine disappeared in a move at some point. I never got around to buying some more, but I'm thinking definitely going to have to buy some for myself soon because they are useful. They actually make eating easier, I find. Especially with things like actually everything. I think a lot of stuff is a lot easier because it's like they're just essentially extensions to your fingers. So once you learn how to use them properly, it becomes almost an indispensable tool in some ways. If you haven't got them, you really miss them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a while I didn't have any cooking chopsticks. I had my own personal chopsticks that I used when
Mm.
I ate, but I didn't have any cooking ones. And I found myself very often like making a stir fry, or if I was doing like a quick fry, like in a
Hmm.
pan, I was finding it really painful to cook because a lot of like spatulas and stuff, you're still putting your hand in the fire area. But
Yes.
with cooking chopsticks, they're usually a lot longer, so it's a little safer. And finally, I just had enough, and I went on and I just ordered chopsticks online. I was like, this is it. I'm done. I'm over it. I'm going to buy
Yeah.
chopsticks. So I bought, I think, 3 pairs. I have so many
Okay.
chopsticks now. But I feel like I don't know why I didn't have them before, because I used to use them all the time when I would cook with my mom.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible invention. It's a sensible idea as well because a knife and fork, you just kind of think. Even with like, I suppose the thing is, I suppose in Western societies, most of the stuff like the food would be in large pieces. That's how it would be because like preparing steaks or preparing roast meat and stuff like that.
Hmm.
You just to have it in large proportions, and I suppose also. I suppose certainly in the West and stuff, you would be eating things that weren't because Japanese rice is sticky and rice so it sticks together, so it's easy to pick up with chopsticks.
Hmm.
Whereas I think the thing is in Europe and stuff, you'd be eating things that were like close to being a porridge or what they call oatmeal in the States, but like you'd be eating that sort of stuff and you're not picking that up with a pair of chopsticks.
No, those would be ridiculous. But I
Mm.
think the commonality between all cultures is a spoon, which like
Oh yeah,
the best utensil ever. I love a spoon. It's, I like I like part of me feels like I'm gonna become a crazy woman one day, and I'm just gonna start collecting a lot of miniature spoons, and then I'll find
all
true
right,
happiness. Um, I love tiny spoons. I love them so much. But I think the benefit with chopsticks is that when you have already pre-cut your vegetables and pre-cut your meat while you're cooking it so that it's already bite-sized, it kind of forces you to slow down. It's really, I mean, once you get good at it, you can absolutely eat really fast with chopsticks. But I think
yeah,
that for me at least, it reminds myself to take my time and really enjoy what I'm eating and really like be very thoughtful of what I'm
yeah,
eating and how I'm eating it. Whereas I find sometimes if I'm eating with a fork, I find myself eating a little faster, which is such a silly thing, but I definitely notice it.
Well, especially because the thing is you could just shovel as much stuff in your mouth as you want, can't you? Really, so it doesn't matter if it's too much. It's like you only find out it's too much after you've done it. You're going, whoops.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's just, I'm sure we've all done that. Suddenly realised, oops.
My mouth is too
Ow.
full. What did I do?
Yeah. Literal case of biting off more than you can chew, and then you're just like there going, what do I do? Especially if in people's company, like what do you do? Like you're at a restaurant, you suddenly realise you put too much in your mouth. You can't remove it from your mouth because people would just think you're being rude, and then you're just sitting there with a mouthful looking like a hamster trying to chew it, and people are looking at you and going, they know I've done something silly.
There's a reason why I don't go to fine dining restaurants that often. But yeah, I think the thing that comes with being a TCK is that you're far more willing, if you do cook, to incorporate a lot of dishes from different countries. Like,
Yeah.
I know that at least once a week I'll make a curry of some kind, almost always Thai, but once in a while I'll make an Indian curry. I very often will make some sort of stir fry. I've started making bulgogi more, which is this
Okay.
like marinated, quickly cooked beef that my partner really, really likes. Like the first time when I was describing it, he was like, "Oh no," and then he ate it when I made it. It was like, "Okay, you have to make this every week." I was like, "Oh, that's fine. I don't care. I love bulgogi." But then I'll also make like some more American style dishes. Like I mean, especially now that it's starting to get cold, like we're in
Yes.
November, getting into December, like uh it snowed here like a couple days ago.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be making a gumbo at some point this week cuz I mean
Ah.
that's part of my heritage. Like I'm from
Yeah.
South Louisiana. My family makes a gumbo. I'm going to make a gumbo.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be done.
Yeah, and it's so good. Like jambalaya and gumbo, they kind of go hand in hand. They're very traditional to Louisiana. Like most southern dishes and specifically Louisiana dishes, they're a poor person dish.
Hmm.
Gumbo is more like a soup stew thing, and jambalaya is a rice-based dish.
Yeah.
But they're so packed with flavor, and they're the types of dishes that are always better the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that, though. I mean, like curries are particularly like that. The second time you cook them, it's better because they had a bit more time to soak up everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's generally the thing. It's like one of the things of also learning to marinate things properly as well. That's important.
Oh yeah,
I,
you can impart
yeah.
so much flavor if you just marinate your meat a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Because there's certainly like some Japanese dishes where I think if you have to really give them a good couple of hours before you actually cook them because that's when the flavors really come through and that's when you get that really authentic taste,
Mm-hmm.
which makes such a big difference.
Oh yeah, no, like whenever I marinate, I really let it go
Mm.
for a bit. Like I,
Oh, yeah.
I, I don't do it last minute. Like if I'm gonna
No.
make a dish that's gonna need marinating, I give it time because I know how good it's going to taste
Oh,
when
yeah.
it's done
Yeah.
properly. I was just thinking another dish that I know that I always I always make it the day before I know I'm going to eat it, even though it's really hard not to just eat it, is lasagna because
Oh, right. Yeah.
it is like patent. It is patently true, in my opinion, that a lasagna the next day is like 200 times better.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. And I started making a version of it where instead of regular noodles, I make it with zucchini noodles.
Oh.
Yeah, just to be a little healthier and less carbohydrates, but
Mm.
it also really does taste so good. But you do have to cook it a little longer,
Yeah.
just because otherwise it is so watery.
Yeah. That's the one thing about, well, in Britain we call them courgettes rather than zucchini, but the thing is that they are they're really nice, but yeah, you do have to think about the water content. That's the
That
thing.
that and also salting them. That was
Oh, yeah.
another that was another trick that I remember learning when I was living in Japan was
Mm.
salting the vegetables before you cook them because it makes it so that they don't absorb as much oil. So they'll
Right. Yeah.
taste fresher and they'll taste more like the actual vegetable.
Yeah. That makes sense. That does make a lot of sense.
I can't remember the name of that dish, but there's a Japanese dish that uses eggplant, which is stir fried. It's so good. It's kind of sweet. It's savory. I'm not
Mm.
going to remember it, but it is such a good dish. I have to look it up. So
Yeah, I can't
I,
remember what that was called either. Because it's like, there's that one Nasudengaku, isn't there? But that's not
it's,
it.
no, maybe, Nasu Dengaku is really good and I love that.
That's true.
but maybe it's agebitashi.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not gonna find it. It might be Nasu Dengaku because that does look really, really good. No, it's
No,
not that, but
that's
that looks
no, it's
amazing.
not like that, but that is a good one.
I was gonna say
That's one
that
of the
looks
things
incredible.
I miss that so much, and I have to work out how to make it as well. That's going to be another problem.
It looks
I've
like
never
you just
learned.
need to use a lot of miso.
I think so. Yeah.
Just get some really good miso.
I mean, that's the thing though, is that that those sort of savoury things. Is I don't, because I went back to Japan beginning of this year, 2020, and just I just thought about it because went to a restaurant and they were asking about desserts and stuff, and the waitress was a bit surprised that I wasn't particularly interested in desserts because she said, "But don't they have just like loads of different kind of sweet things in the UK?" I was like, "Yeah, but I can't do it. Like Japanese sweet stuff has got a particular thing which is okay. I quite like it because it makes sense because you have to drink it with your green tea and eat it with your green tea. I mean, drinking sweets would probably be a bad idea.
Hey, what do you
But
think a milkshake is?
that's true. Jesus. Um,
We have an entire cottage industry on milkshakes here in the States.
oh my god.
I'm not
Yeah,
joking. There are
I can believe
places,
that.
there are places that, like old-fashioned diners here in the States. There are
Oh
entire
yeah, yeah.
sections of the menu that are just dedicated to milkshakes.
Jesus. I
Yeah.
can believe that though. It kind of makes sense. But I mean, it's the thing, isn't it? I think a lot of people, you don't know about a culture until you actually kind of go there, and I think it really does actually affect you quite strongly what you learn to eat when you're a child,
Mm-hmm.
and it does affect the way you sort of like think about it as well.
And I know for you, you're not really attracted to sweet things, and that's because you grew up
No,
in Japan.
I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. I can't think of any other explanation because there's so much sweet stuff in the UK, and I just can't be bothered with it. I'm just not interested, and people are always a bit surprised.
I think for me, I like sweet stuff when I have them, but when
Hmm.
things are like overly sweet, when it's not a natural sweetness, that kind of like
Yeah.
sucrose, dextrose, like those like super fabricated, essentially like artificial sweetness, it
Hmm.
it sometimes gives me a headache, to be honest.
I can understand that. I mean, I'm not. I can't remember the last time I ate anything particularly sweet, but it just doesn't appeal to me. I can't do it, and as I get older, I can do it less. I think it's just there's just something about it. Maybe as your kid, it kind of makes sense that you would be more interested in them, but I mean, it doesn't interest me particularly. I think
Yeah.
it's too much. I think, and it probably is something about having grown up in a country where like you have a lot of savoury food because I love savoury food. You
Mm-hmm.
could put savoury food in front of me, and I'd be perfectly happy to eat it without any problems. But like sweet foods, no, no
Mm-hmm.
interest in them at all. And people are always a bit surprised,
Yeah, I
sometimes
think
insulted even that do you want some of the cake? It's like, no, I'm all right, thank you. So, but I made it specially. It's like, honestly, I can't eat it.
yeah, I
It's not even an intolerance or anything. It's just I just can't do it
it just you don't
anymore.
have an attraction
Yeah.
to it.
No, I'm not going to enjoy it as much as or somebody puts something in savoury in front of me. So, oh yes, please. Perfectly
Mm-hmm.
happy to eat that.
Yeah, I've been finding myself trying to bake a little bit more, especially since I
Mm.
went apple picking maybe a couple weeks ago with my partner, and
All
there's
right, okay.
so many apples in the house. I don't want them
Mm-hmm.
to go bad, so I've been making a lot of applesauce where I don't add
Mm.
sugar. I like cook it down for a long time until the apples get mushy. And then the other
Yeah, that makes
thing
sense.
I made recently was like a cinnamon apple bread, and it was so good. But the amount of sugar it called for sounded like a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take it out of the bread because I know that when you mess with portions in a dough, you can really mess up the bake. But I took out some of
Mm-hmm.
the sugar from the topping, and it still
Mm-hmm.
tasted really, really good to me
Mm-hmm.
because it was less sweet. I thought that the apples
Yeah.
themselves were already sweet enough.
Yeah. It's funny, particularly in Western countries. I mean, I think in the UK they do this a lot as well. Is that you get people coming over from places like Holland and Germany and going, the bread here is awful. And you're
Oh,
going, I
yeah.
know, but they add so much sugar into it. Uh, I think in the UK the rules about what you can and cannot put into things are a little bit stronger than they might be in the US, and you have to tell people what's in it. So
Hmm.
you can check it quite easily, but like all the bread loaves and stuff like that, amazing amounts of sugar. It's really worrying. So like you go and buy yourself a sandwich or something like that, you have no idea how much sugar is that. Well, you can get an idea, but there's probably more sugar in it than you think.
Hmm.
Um, which is a weird thought. I'm not sure what it is about, particularly Western societies. I'm not sure how it is in France. I'm assuming in Germany it isn't that bad if they think the bread here is terrible. But
Oh, bread in
there are some
France.
interesting traditions.
Yeah, bread in France is, I mean, it's a stereotype, but it is a well deserved stereotype. It is
Mm-hmm.
so good. Like, you could just eat bread. Like, just go to a bakery, get a
Mm-hmm.
bread, and just eat it, and you will feel so satisfied because it tastes good. It's not sweet. It has a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a kind of a yeasty bite to it. It's just, oh, it's so delicious. And like, I'm gluten free and I'm not supposed to eat bread. But in France, once in a blue moon, as like a treat, I would have a little bit of bread. And I remember when I moved from France to the States so I could go to college, it was one of those special occasions where I was like, oh, I'll have a little bit of bread. It was so sweet. It was like eating dessert bread. And I remember
Yeah.
asking my friend, I was like, is this like like, is this sweet bread? Like, is this a not sweet breads, but but like, is this a bread that's supposed to be a dessert? And she was like, no, that's like a white loaf. I'm like, what is in this? Did you just dump sugar in it? She was like, I don't know, it's from the supermarket.
It's so worrying though, isn't it? It's strange. Maybe being from maybe growing up elsewhere kind of makes you more sensitive to it. I don't know.
I
I
don't
suppose
know.
it does.
I definitely know that when it comes to sugar and sugary things, I do find myself sometimes craving sugar, but I
Mm.
don't think that I want it as much as, say, like my like American friends do. Like,
Right. Yeah.
once in a while I really honestly do crave some sugar. But usually when I'm craving it, I lean more towards like chocolate or like
Mm-hmm.
fruits, like things that are sweet but they're not like overtly sweet. Like,
Right. Yeah.
for me, we just had Halloween here in the States,
Yeah.
and um there's always this big like push for buying candy and all this stuff. And I remember even growing up, the only time I really like celebrated Halloween here in the States, I didn't want any of the candy. All I
Yeah.
wanted was the chocolate. Like, my
Right.
brother
Yeah.
and I came to an agreement where I was like, I will give you all of my candies if you give me chocolate because I do not want the candy. Like, I really didn't want it.
Yeah. I suppose that actually sounds like a fair deal.
Yeah. I was like, you're
Yeah.
going to eat my candy anyway, and I want your chocolate, so let's trade.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. It's funny. It's sweet things. I'm trying to think of the things in the UK that they do. I don't mind some of the pies. I suppose they do
Yeah,
because I
but
mean you have.
I was going to say, I think because with a pie, inherently, it's more about what's in it than the
Mm,
crust.
yes. Exactly. I mean, but then I always like the things that are a bit more sort of like tart, as they say. Have more sour flavour. So like one of the things that I remember having in the UK, certainly in the summer. I mean, I haven't had one this summer, but then it's been a bit of a weird year. So, okay. Um,
Par for
but
the course.
yeah, but gooseberry pie. That's one of the ones that I haven't had in a very long time, and that's a good one to have. That's really nice.
I've heard of it before. They definitely talked about it on Great British Bake Off, my only source of
Mm.
British baking. But I'll be honest. But it looks really good. I remember when
Yeah,
they were talking about, I think someone made it once on the show, and I looked at it, I was like, that looks incredible. No idea what it would taste like, but just the look of it, I was like, I want to eat that.
yeah. Gooseberries are an interesting one.
Because they're kind of tart, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you have to put a lot of sugar into them to make them actually taste sweet. Um, by themselves, you probably wouldn't really want to eat a lot of them by themselves, but like once you put them in pies and do them in cooking and stuff, they're really good for that.
Also, kind of like
Um,
a kumquat. Kumquats are, you don't want to just eat
yeah,
a kumquat.
yeah. But kumquats are kind of like a an orange, isn't it?
Yeah, it's closer
It's
to a
orange.
citrus flavor.
Yeah. As a gooseberry, I mean, the only thing I can describe it as, it looks like a hairy grape. That's the only thing I can actually say that it looks like. It looks like a hairy white grape. I mean, kind of. Um,
Oh my
there,
gosh.
there
That's
was a joke about that
so...
there's a joke about it in a British comedy somewhere, because it's all about World War Two, and one of the captains of the platoon is in hospital, and obviously they've got rationing going on. So somebody brings in this punnet of what looks like grapes, And he goes, "Oh my goodness, grapes! How did you get hold of them?" I was like, "Oh, well, they're not really grapes; they're shaved gooseberries." And just thought that it does look like that. It does look like a grape, but it doesn't taste like one.
No, if you're saying that they have to put that much sugar, like a lot of sugar, just to make it taste sweet, then yeah, that's gonna be a rough one to bite into. That would probably be a really good prank. Shaving down a
Oh yeah,
gooseberry and like offering it to someone like a grape.
that's
What
just
an
like the kind of.
evil thing to do.
He's giving me ideas now.
No.
Just hide them in like a fruit bowl.
Oh my
What the
gosh.
heck's wrong with these grapes? Nothing's wrong with them. They're fine. What's the matter?
That's so evil. I think
Yeah.
I think that's something that I do miss about Japan. It's something that I have noticed with like food habits is that here in the States, food is always served in these ridiculously large portions, like portions that just feel completely overwhelming and just untenable. Like very often when my partner and I go out, if we each get something, we're always going home with seconds with takeout, like basically. Like we'll eat and then we're taking home most of it.
Yeah.
Or what we've also been doing is we'll share a plate just because it's so much food. But in Japan, it feels more like what you are eating is just the right amount. And it's funny because I think I talked about this the other day with my partner. When you eat Japanese food, when you like order it, you look at it and you're thinking, oh, that doesn't look like all that much food. But by the time
No.
you're like done, you're full. You're really full.
Yeah.
It's kind of impressive.
Well, it's done in the right way, I think. It's just the portions are right. If you get them right, because they have like lots of different things that go with it as well. That's the thing. It's in small portions, but there's lots of different ones.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually eat quite well. And it is very healthy food. I mean, that's the thing is, the only thing you've got to worry about it is the salt content
Oh,
most
yeah,
of the time. That's the thing you've got to worry about.
that was a huge change for us when we moved to Japan. We were not ready for the salt content. We were
Yeah.
ready for things being less sweet. We were ready for a lot more fish and a lot more rice, which for my family is great because we're like my mom and I are both gluten free. So
Yeah.
going to a country where a majority of the food is rice based, we were like, excellent, we can deal with that. But we were not prepared for the amount of salt that was going to be in literally every meal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big change, I think. I can't think of any UK dishes that are that salty, apart from, well, it's not really a dish, but I mean, like the crisps maybe have quite a lot of salt in them.
Mm-hmm.
Potato chips, I mean. Yeah,
I knew what you meant.
yeah. Just for other people who might not.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just an interesting one. I'm not sure how they managed to get so much salt in the diet. I'm not sure what it is. It might be something to do with being in a hotter climate. You might need more salt because obviously you're going to sweat more. So you might be losing salts a lot more. That could be part of it.
Well, also, it's an ocean-bound country. It's an
That's
island.
true.
So a lot of the times, if you wanted something to last a long time, the best way to do that is to preserve it in salt.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's true.
That's why a lot of
Yeah.
like Northern European, when you want like Scandinavia, they have a lot of salt brined and salt preserved meats because it means
That's
that the
true.
meat will last a lot longer. And when you have really long winters or you need to make sure that what little you have lasts a long time, salt is the best curing agent.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it lasts forever, doesn't it? I mean, it also helps to dry things out, which does make a difference.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, more water is fine. That'll help a lot. I think one of the things that I really appreciated about Japan and their view of cooking, and I think it stuck with me, and it's very similar to the way the French cook too, is there's a real awareness of the season and what is fresh,
yeah.
what is available, and really basing your dishes and what you cook on what you can get and not trying to like force nature to suit your will, but rather seeing what is available and what nature is giving you at that time of year, and then from there creating the dishes. Like there's
Yes.
an entire section of Japanese cooking that is completely dedicated to just cooking seasonal food.
Yes, that's true. I'm not sure what it is in the UK about that so much. I mean, you don't think about doing seasonal cooking as much, I don't think. But then I think the thing is in Western societies, the thing is you've got, particularly within Europe, you've got quite a few places that you can get stuff from quite easily. So Northern Africa will have stuff that it'll be producing in the winter that won't be being produced in sort of parts of Northern Europe. But the thing is you can trade it quite easily. Stuff in, Mediterranean countries, I mean, it does get cold there, but I mean, there are things that you can grow there. And then the Dutch apparently are just exceedingly good at building greenhouses. So in Europe, it's quite easy to. It's genuinely true. You can transfer foods around much more easily. The production levels in Europe are actually pretty high in terms of what you can get hold of easily. Whereas Japan, I don't know where are you going to get your stuff from. You've got China,
And you have East
South
Asia.
Korea, yeah,
But
you
you still have to import all of that, and that I
exactly,
mean, any sort of import is always going to be more expensive.
yeah,
It's easier
So-
to get what's on the local economy.
exactly, yeah. It makes more sense because I mean, transporting foods across the world does make them a heck of a lot more expensive.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. It's always this weird battle that I have with myself where it's like I sometimes am craving foods from other countries and I desperately want them and I want to make them myself. But then there's this battle with myself where it's like, okay, but this is being imported. It's incredibly expensive. Is it worth it for me to satisfy my cravings of making me feel less homesick? But then, like, this is expensive both for me and then also, like, for the planet to import these
Yes.
foods. So
Yeah.
it's a real. I don't have an answer, but I know it's a hard thing that like I kind of go back and forth on all the time.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. But as the economy's become like that more and more, there will be more and more stuff that's being transported without you even really being knowing. I think that's the thing. It's difficult. It's difficult to tell. It will happen more and more though as time goes on. I think, because as technology and abilities to preserve foods get better, they'll be able to transport more of them. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're actually kind of at the end of our time.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is funny enough.
That went quick.
It did. So this is Passport Necessary. If you've been enjoying our podcast, we've been a couple episodes in now, please feel free to leave us a comment, write a review. It really means the world to us if you, let us know what you think and how you're enjoying it. Coming up fairly soon, we're going to have an interview with a dear friend of mine, our first interview, which we hope to do more of in the future, so I'm really excited. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Also, if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter. My handle is @LeylaGentil. That's LeylaGentil. So if you have a question, you can also send it through there. Yeah, that's kind of it for now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and it was really great seeing you, Marcus.
Good seeing you too.
Until next time, bye.